Hey, July 21, 2020. We are at it. Anthony, I got to ask you, why is it every single day on this show I seem really surprised when we're going live?
Because you're Glenn.
Yeah, good point. All right. So great to see everybody here today. Anthony, great to see you too. Now, before you say anything, I want you to know I'm working really hard to make sure that we could just get out and about on the road this week at some point.
Yes. Well, we're getting out Thursday, so whether you're there or not, I'm going.
I
know. So this morning, my friend.
Yes.
How are you?
Where am I?
How are you?
Oh, I'm fine. The weather has been super crazy hot, so the backyard has been nice. I spent a couple hours out in the back just kind of trying to get my head on straight. Didn't happen, but I tried.
I was on the beach this morning, and it was too hot. I had to get off the beach.
Really?
Yeah, it was a little too hot. It's way. If it's too hot on the beach, it's too hot on the beach.
Breaking news. Colleen is up to her neck in neckties. Thank you for the kind words as well.
And for those people that don't know what that means, is Colleen said thank you for the neckties because she donated over $600 to the Hospitality Strong GoFundMe page, and I was supposed to send her a tie, and I didn't. So she shamed me into it, and which I'm glad she did, because she sent my assistant in text saying in a very kind way, I'd like my ties, please.
Yes.
And I sent her 3 ties. So I sent her 3 ties.
Yeah, that's great. I'm so glad that you did that. I also want to point out, we did finally get the technology working. So, Anthony, we are once again streaming everywhere that we're supposed to be streaming, and we're going to be adding more streaming locations as we continue to go forward, which is exciting. I want to thank everybody for helping build this community here. We've done such a great job. Now, Anthony, one of the things that we have made a promise to is try to make a commitment to industry diversity here. We've had a few shows on it, but we don't want to seem like it's just something that's going to be okay for now and not continue. So we are going to continue with this. And that's why today we're bringing back in Andy Ingraham, who runs NABHOOD, the National Association of Black Hotel Owners, Operators and Developers. Operators and Developers. Sorry about that, Andy.
I'm going to kind of correct a little bit. It's that we're going to bring him back in because it's the right thing to do. Andy's a legend in our industry, and his perspective, whether it's white or black, is very important. And so that's why we're bringing him on.
Bringing him back is always important. Us continuing our plan in a multitude of variety of ways is what I am talking about. Not specifically to Andy.
I was trying to clarify.
I thank you
Andy slaps in the head.
I think, and he might. Let's see. Let's go for a virtual slap right now. Andy Ingram, my friend, great to see you once again joining us. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, and tell Anthony stay off the beach. In some cities like the Bahamas, the beach is off limits.
Yes.
Well, all of the Bahamas is off limits to Americans. What?
That is not true.
Anthony, that's not true. That's far from the truth.
What happened?
Apparently, the media got it wrong. Shocking, I know. But, Andy, what is the reality of what's going on Bahamas and travel not going there?
Are you in the Bahamas right now? Are you in the Bahamas right now?
No, I'm not, but I just got off the phone with the Minister of Tourism about 5 minutes ago, and we've been working on this message for the last 24 hours. The media got it wrong. The Bahamas is closed to commercial traffic because of the issue of COVID. What we're not closed to is Americans coming in. So private charters, private flights, yachts, boats, as long as you have a COVID test, you are welcome to come to the Bahamas.
But the commercial flight's not allowed to come in.
Commercial flights, it's like a funnel. So what we're trying to do is stem this issue of COVID coming in until we're using a funnel approach. If you went to a charter flight at Fort Lauderdale Airport, any airport, a private charter flight, a private flight, a yacht, a boat, providing you have that COVID testing that we require.
Right. And no disrespect intended, but 99% of the people don't charter planes and can afford to charter planes.
That's a good point. But remember, when I say charter flight, so you can buy a seat on a charter. You don't have to charter the whole plane.
Yeah, but it's still a lot more expensive than a regular airline ticket.
It is, but here's the issue, Anthony. We've got to figure out how to control the element. Nobody in the well, let's take that back. The White House. Let me take that back altogether.
All right, let's start off.
Oh,
wait, it's a good thing this is not live, Andy. So don't worry. Take your time.
Thank you very much. You know, in Florida, for example, it's a hot spot. Mm-hmm. And 90% of the market to the Caribbean and to the Bahamas, but 70% comes from North America. A huge portion comes from Florida. And our issue is that how do you control the narrative? Anguilla borders are going to be open August 1 to private jets. It's not that we're looking for a specific crowd. We're looking for a way to start the economy while at the same time controlling the narrative on COVID infecting people. And the Bahamas is no different. The media got it wrong. The Bahamas is not closed to U.S. nationals. If you've got a private boat and you want to go to the Bahamas, you apply for a travel visa, you will get approved from the Ministry of Tourism as long as you have a negative test and you're on to your way to one of the 700 private islands that we have in the Bahamas.
No, and I understand what you're saying, and in all intents and purposes, it's not closed. But the majority, you're trying to, like you said, a funnel approach, which I appreciate and which I think is respectful, and I agree with 100%. But when you say the media got it wrong, I understand. Yes, the Bahamas isn't closed. However, if you say, Four Seasons Hotel in New York City isn't closed, but the rooms start at $5,000 a night, basically it's closed for most people. So right now, the Bahamas is starting a very slow approach because, unfortunately, America is going in the wrong direction. So, which is commendable. And to be honest with you, if you opened it up to commercial and you didn't expect us to have COVID testing, I wouldn't come to the Bahamas. If I was able to, and my wife would want to go to the Bahamas right now, I would get on a charter plane and I would go down there because it's going to be quiet and it's going to be a great place to be, and it gives money into the Bahamas. So I'm going to cut the difference with you, Andy, because I love you, and say yes, the Bahamas is open, but the media, which gets a lot wrong, they went out with the headline, and the headline is commercial traffic's not allowed, and so basically they're closed.
I agree. The headline tells the story, but the reality is that we have to restart the economy, but we have to restart it responsibly. I wish we had a federal mandate on masks. I wish we had a mandate in Florida on masks so that we can stem the spread of this COVID. But a lot of the counties, Broward County, where I am, in Miami-Dade County, have a mask rule in effect that you can't go anywhere in public. And I think for most of the Caribbeans, fragile economies, they've got to start the economy as quickly as possible, but at the same time, they've got to be real smart. And the Bahamas is just taking that approach.
Well, what's happening here in America is, we started to, in New York and other places, started to panic and we closed down, and now everybody else opened up, and now you see what you see. So now we have somewhere in between. We're not absolutely saying, hey, everybody wear a mask and everybody kind of like don't go to restaurants and bars. We're kind of in the middle. So what does that mean? When you're in the middle, you eventually get to the finish line, but you don't get there first. You don't get there second. You don't get there third. You're back of the pack, and you get past the finish line, but you saw a lot of crashes in front of you before you got there. And that's where we are as America.
Yes, and that's why I choose to go out to restaurants, but when I get halfway there, I turn around and go home.
Well, I go to restaurants outside, but not. So, Andy, I want to ask you a question. What's happening in the next 30 to 60 days is the CMBS loans are coming due. Everybody's nervous. I have a friend that's actually setting up a company to kind of take these hotels for the bank and manage these hotels for the bank. So is that good for the Black community and the Black hotel owners, or is that bad, or is it somewhere in between? Where are we?
That's bad for the hotel community at large. The beauty is that our partners at the Asian American Hotel Owners and American Hotel Association has been working with the congressional members on the Banking and Finance Committee We have a continued discussion. We just signed a letter of support going to Congress that they would put some piece of legislation in the CARES Act that's coming out where we can have some sort of decorum in dealing with the CMBS loans that are coming due. It is critical because many hoteliers, particularly minority, particularly African-American hoteliers and Asian-American hoteliers, if we get this wrong, we can get wiped out. And that's a real concern. So we're spending an inordinate amount of time with our elected officials on Capitol Hill, A, educating them, and B, of course, spending some time with our bankers to see what's some of the recourses that we can take.
Yeah, that's right. Eddie, I believe there's something like $28 billion in hospitality CMBS loans coming due within the next year or so. Hopefully, the federal government will find a pathway to create some sort of solutions for all of these folks, because we keep getting told time and time again, there's nothing anybody could do because the government can't really get involved. So well, I think the government seems to have no problem getting involved in a lot of things they haven't gotten involved with before.
Exactly.
So maybe they'll help here.
But Glenn, remember they got involved when they saved the banks, the automotive industry,
that's
the
right,
airlines, and the cruise ships. I mean, just recently, Treasury bought a lot of paper from Carnival, gave them a lifeline. So I think it's critical that as taxpayers and that as people that employ a lot of folks, that we've got to look at this and see how we can come up with a solution. And I think, quite frankly, the Banking and Finance Committee and government has a responsibility.
And is there anything on the table right now to help these CMBS loans? What do you see?
No, I think there's a lot of discussion going on. We had a conference call yesterday with a number of our stakeholders, and we've made some recommendations. But I think Glenn's point that government has to step in because everybody must have a relief. I mean, let's face it. There are some clauses within the covenants of these loans that can be violated just by trying to save yourself. Mm-hmm. And be real careful about that. The second part of it is that, we can't continue to put debt on top of debt and no way of paying it off. I mean, you think about the rest of 2020 is gone. I mean, I don't have any high hopes that the last quarter of this year that we're going to miraculously open all the economy and make some money. I think you're seeing hotels creeping up from 3% occupancy to 10, 20, 30%, but that's not sufficient enough to keep us open. I think for us, we're concerned about our employees, we're concerned about the vendors, and we AHLA, Hispanic hotel owners and Asian American hotel owners have been working hard on a continuous basis, talking to elected officials, talking to local officials, Capitol Hill officials to say, hey, try this course of action. And people like Van Taylor in Texas, who's sponsoring a great piece of legislation that's going to deal with CMBS loans, Al Lawson, folks like Greg Meeks on the Finance Committee. The question is that we've got to get our case to those individuals that are responsible and can make a difference with some legislation that the White House will sign.
So what is your thinking? You think it's going to happen? It's just going to take a while and a lot of bureaucracy, or what are the chances?
The answer is yes, it's going to happen. Anthony, the sad part, it has to happen. If it does not happen, the second largest industry in this country, not just Black hotel owners, not just Asian or Hispanic or Korean hotel owners, but the whole industry would be in trouble. And keep in mind, the second largest industry in this country is hospitality. And so as you see in some of the destinations like Florida, like that are heavily dependent on New York City, heavily dependent on tourism, people are unemployed. Now, if that industry goes down completely, what's going to happen? The other bad thing is that those individual entrepreneurs that took a chance in this great industry called hospitality would lose all that equity and wealth that they've built up over generations, and it'll be right back to start all over again. We can't afford that in the industry. I don't think America can afford it. And I think the elected officials are beginning to understand that it's not a handout, it's a hand in tough times so that we can all get back to business as quickly as possible.
Well, Andy, you take a look at what the federal government did in the Great Recession when they helped out the automobile companies. There seems to be a common misconception that a lot of money was just handed over to them, but it was loans. Those loans were all fully paid back. It stabilized the industry. It helped get us back on our feet, and it kept people employed. So it worked out really well. So if there is a will, the U.S. government can and must help the hospitality industry and all of the owners and operators within it to keep these properties open, keep tourism going, and find ways to help promote tourism. Again, one great way to promote tourism, state of Florida, your governor over there, is get people to wear those masks, and maybe people will travel more. Yes. But what do I know about Florida, Randy?
I think it's safe to say, and I'll just talk for myself, that the governor in Florida, I don't care what side of the aisle you're on, he looks like a complete failure. I mean, it's ridiculous. And it doesn't matter if you support, what party you support. He doesn't know what side's up. But anyway, what are you saying, Andy? There's a lot of people that yell fire when the house isn't on fire, and that or the movie theater. That's why it's illegal. This is serious. And you're saying it in a very calm and very professional tone. But like you said, we don't get help. These loans go away, and our industry starts to collapse. Actually, our industry started to collapse. It's going to continue to collapse until it collapses. And if you don't believe me, there's 5 major hotels in New York City that are closed. I don't mean you, but the audience. 5 major hotels in New York City that are never going to open again. So what are they going to become? Homeless shelters? Which would be great, but how would that help the economy? How would that help the city? It won't.
Anthony, the sad part is all those employees will be out of a job. And then you think about it, at the height of prior to COVID, you had 2.8 million people traveling every day on airlines. We're down to about 87,000 people traveling. So people are afraid to travel. And as a result, they're not staying in hotels. So I think, like Glenn said, it's incumbent upon the government and to ensure that we prop up this industry, because you're right, this is going to pass. And once it passes, we're going to see a great, vibrant economy coming back and people able to travel, hoteliers able to pay loans, employ people, give bonuses. But unfortunately, the governor of the state of Florida dropped the ball. And we've got to come back with more responsible governance so that we can get to the point of trying to stem this COVID-19. Otherwise, we'll be talking about this a year from now.
Yeah. Well, at least the governor of Florida isn't suing the mayor of his largest city for people to not wear masks. So at least he's got that one thing.
That's dumb. That's dumb, Glenn. Yeah. That is extraordinary dumb.
Yes. And you know what? Not only it's dumb, it takes the focus off of those ICUs that are full, the doctors that need PPE, the nurses and doctors and the PAs and everyone else that are basically desperate in these communities. It takes the focus off of them. And it's horrendous. Listen, a month ago, we were talking about numbers and traveling and Florida opening, and we were I've been in Vegas and Florida. I've been 100 places by now. And now we're back to where we were 4 or 5 months ago. And it's so upsetting that I am not able to even express how disappointed and angry I am at people that continue to refuse to pay attention.
The one thing, it's heartbreaking to see these health professionals putting their lives on the line for people that have no regards for themselves and the people that they're creating.
You want to get everybody's attention? You want to get the world's attention? Take 130,000 pictures of the people that died and put them in an album and circulate that virtually on the internet, and you will see all of a sudden everybody changed.
Remember that AIDS quilt and how for the younger people out there, they probably don't remember that, but when the AIDS crisis came into full bloom, they started making a quilt for each individual person that passed away from it, and they stitched it all together, and it literally took up the space of the entire Washington Mall. It was so dramatic. I think, Andy, we need stuff like that to wake people the F up from what's going on here, get them out of their stupor, and to say, hey, it's about time we act as Americans. We have rights, but we also have responsibilities, and our responsibility in America is to look out for each other's health and safety, and we're not doing that. And I've just about had it at this point with people being so damn selfish they're not living up to the responsibilities as citizens of this country. All right.
Tell us how you really feel, Glenn.
Right. Yeah. It's really just I've just had it. I don't need to keep going on about that. But we did have some good news this morning that popped up. Red Edwards wants to know about this vaccine news and how it might help the hotel industry. Apparently, there seems to be a lot of forward momentum out of the UK as a potential vaccine. I think it's too early to make any grand statements, but at least it's something encouraging. Andy, how do you feel about possible encouragement with that news today?
Boy, any vaccine is like a shot in the arm, no pun intended. But if we can get a vaccine, that will change the course of not only our industry, but the course of America. That's the world. I mean, we're all waiting for a lifeline. That's our lifeline. I mean, what else can you say?
You know, there's this old saying that says money solves a lot of problems. A vaccine is going to solve a lot of people's mistakes. It's going to solve a lot of governors' mistakes and a lot of mistakes, period. And, you know, it's unfortunate, but we should be, before we get to the vaccine, we should already be kind of getting this thing under control like we did in New York, New Jersey, Connecticut. And again, it can get out of control. Who knows? But we're going to get to a vaccine is a desperation. Go, oh, God, the vaccine's here, where we should have rolled up a lot calmer and a lot like, okay, vaccine's important, but our economy shouldn't be on the brink. Our people shouldn't be on the brink. The time a vaccine comes, we are going to be on the brink.
Yeah, we are already on the brink.
No, not yet. We will be soon, though.
Yeah, it really does. It really does feel like that.
And I want to know who's holding up the stock market. I mean, who is there? A little guy standing behind the stock market holding it up? Who's holding that up?
We all know the stock market is not pegged to reality. It's based on feelings and sentiment. And right now, the people doing a lot of the stock trades want to remain wealthy, so they've all convinced themselves that there's no problems economically in our country, so their numbers could stay up. Now, I'm not going to complain about that because I may or may not have a share or two of stock out there, but it is definitely not the reality of what the economy is facing.
Well, the other side of the coin, Glenn, if we're not careful, once we come out of this, we may have 2 major hotel companies and 6 management companies, and they own everything under the sun. Folks like Anthony and I and most of our members will be out the door and have to go back and apply for a position.
Yeah, I've already applied for 3 and I was refused. No, I applied for 3 and I was refused. No, just kidding. But listen,
he applied for 10.
They basically own everything anyway. All right, let's talk about butterflies and rainbows. Any butterflies and rainbows?
I don't know about butterflies and rainbows, but I do know a lot about unicorns. So maybe we can talk about that. But Andy, really what we do want to talk about today, aside from all this great information you've already shared with us, is you put out a great paper a few weeks ago about creating more opportunities and executive leadership positions for people of color in the hospitality industry. I found it to be an absolutely fascinating read. Not just fascinating in the sense that it really brought to the fore a lot of the problems that we're facing, but really made me take a deep look at what's going on in this industry, made me take a good look at myself, because there was nothing in here that was surprising. It was surprising to read, but nothing was surprising about this.
So what we're talking about what was in there, so we have to stop guessing what was in there.
Right. So the executive summary, and thank you for thank you for interrupting me while I was trying to build up to a good point there, because we needed that. So while racial diversity exists at lower levels in the hospitality industry, very few African Americans ascend to top leadership roles. Absolutely true. A number of barriers prevent Black hospitality professionals from progressing to executive leadership, including lack of mentorship and access to social networks. And we mean real social networks, not Facebook. Feelings of isolation and the absence of support, and discrimination and bias, among others. And these barriers are not insurmountable. While some are systemic and others are rooted in individuals, all of the barriers can be dismantled if current hospitality executives are willing to take action to create the conditions that will allow more African Americans to rise to the top of our industry. Very well said. All absolutely truths that are out there. So what's the first step for taking those truths and making change?
Well, Glenn, that's a good intro and a good capsulizing of where I think we are.
And I should say that was your executive summary, not mine.
Thank you. Well, we have a bunch of great people that have worked on that. From Cornell, University of Rhode Island, FIU. We can't say enough about those guys that have helped us with this deep dive. But Glenn, Anthony, here's the key. Diversity starts with a commitment at the top. So the CEOs of these institutions have got to make a real commitment to diversity and a real commitment to carrying out the goals of diversity. Now, let's face it. African Americans spend currently, the numbers are $65 billion. MMYG Global just announced last week that they're going to do a study, and we speculate that expenditure is roughly around $90 to $100 billion on travel. Now, when you go to a hotel today, opportunities for most African Americans at the executive level is almost non-existent. You know, one in five. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I got a number here for you to support what you're saying. Black people hold 0.7% of CEO positions within hospitality firms. Black men hold 0.5% of CEO positions, while Black women hold 0.2%. And at the director level and above, Black people hold a mere 1.5% of positions. 1% by Black men, 0.5% by Black women. Astounding and shocking for a culture and people that represent something like 12% of the American population.
By the way, we had one cruise line, and I won't call the cruise line name, but in the cruise industry, how well they've done. They've had 2 African-American CEOs. When the issue of COVID happened, they disregarded, just fired or furloughed one African-American. So the issue that we've got to be careful about, and how do we sustain this, is that every time we get a call, the first thing we do is fire or furlough people that came in late, typically minorities and specifically African Americans. That cruise company just dismissed that president. They said because of COVID can furlough, and 3 days later or 3 weeks later, they hired a white person to become the president. I have a problem with that. But also remember, all the brands during the furlough had a tough time. They furloughed a lot of their people. In that furlough first round, all of the diversity persons for most of the brands were furloughed. Now, when Black Lives Matter hit, they all came back. And hopefully they're making a change. Here's the good news. The good news is 5 minutes before I got on this conference call, I got a call from one of the largest hotel companies in the US. And their request is, how can we work together? How can we create a protege program? How can we take those numbers we're looking at and change it? So the good news is that we've been talking with a lot of major firms, a lot of brands, a lot of third-party management companies, a lot of ownership groups. We have scheduled a talk with a number of REITs to see how we in the African American community, in the Asian American community, in the Hispanic American community can all work together to make sure that we have a sustainable effort in having people of color in those positions. And here's what's happening, Glenn and Anthony. Kids go to school, they get a great degree, they enter the industry, and because they can't go beyond the glass ceiling, they leave. And so working with organizations and schools like FIU, we're to create a pipeline where we can develop general managers. And we also brought in one specific item that we're asking the industry to adopt. Actually, it's a couple of them, but one in particular called the NABHOOD rule. What is every executive position that becomes available, you should at least interview one African American. No different than what happened in Major League football with the Rooney Rule, where you had Black coaches. And if you begin to do that and build the pipeline, we can then have that serious discussion by CEOs. Tie in the bonuses for its executive to creating or adhering to the diversity goals that they set. By the way, not to call any names, but in my discussion with Chris Nassetta, he has led the effort in his commitment to say, we're going to do this. Hilton is going to put an African American on their board.
Great.
And Hilton has led the effort when RLJ was put together.
Yep.
Park hotels, the recommendation that Tom Baltimore. So we're hoping that all these major institutions, all these hotel companies, not see it as a burden, but see it as a business opportunity to take advantage of a growing market and the fact that America is becoming more brown every day. And I think it makes sense. I think it's the right thing to do. And I think if the CEOs of these major companies, and we've had some discussions this week and last week that I'm encouraged by. We've talked to members of the Congressional Black Caucus.
Right.
We've talked to other stakeholders, and I think people get it. And I think even under this awful situation called COVID, and our industry is just completely devastated. And of course, you have Black Lives Matter. You have what happened to George Floyd. You know, I like to put this in the context that we have a sick industry, and the best thing is that we have some great doctors, and if we can have folks that will pay attention and really want to resolve and get most of these problems behind us, then this is an easy fix, not a quick fix.
That's right. One area out of this report that really struck me as fascinating is what you call the middle management plateau. It was one of those things I didn't think about it consciously. I read it and I'm like, holy cow, this is real. This is something that needs to change. Andy, why don't you explain what that is, what the problem has been, and what we can do in order to change that plateau and make middle management more of an opportunity step for all cultures?
Well, I mean, let's face it, typically what happens, you rise so high in this industry and then you stop. There's no more advancement. And for a young, aggressive man or woman that want to take advantage of their education and the opportunity, they're doing the right things, they're in the right places, obviously something's being done wrong, it's just stop. What do? The only place you can do now is leave the industry, find something else to do. I talked to a brand yesterday, and they were concerned that even though they had a number of people of color in positions, they found that when they canvassed those individuals, a lot of them were looking to move on because they'd spent 5, 6, 10 years there and nothing has happened. We're deciding through the protege program, through a mentorship program, is to figure out how we get out of that quagmire. And that's the big issue. The easiest way to get out of that is a commitment to ensure that we bring folks along, mentoring at that level, social interaction at that level. I mean, listen, the most segregated hour in the United States is Sunday morning at church service. I don't want that to be representative of the hotel industry. I think for us, this is a great industry, had tremendous potential. It's a people industry. And so I want my friend who can do a great job, who can help my bottom line, who can help my occupancy, who can help me grow my business, to be able to achieve all the success that we see, that we see in our counterparts, that we see as a potential in this great industry. And that's something that we've got to deal with, Glenn.
Yeah, and I think you said something really important, whether it be mentorship or called sponsors, is we need that, because I don't know anyone that has gone on to great things in this industry that didn't have a mentor or a sponsor or someone watching their back and saying, hey, don't zigzag. And I had one that I used to call up on probably 3-4 times a year, and we'd have a cup of coffee and he'd say, do this, don't do this, and I didn't agree with him all the time, but just to have that mentor to know he had my back was really important. And I think that we need to do that as much as possible. And I think that's missing. We had
Anthony, you're right. I remember, and Brown Kessler, Glenn may remember him, retired. But Brown, when we started NABHOOD, and I'll never forget, at Don Peoples Hotel, which was the first African-American owned hotel on South Beach. Brown Kessler, anytime we needed something and help, always there. He was able to take phone calls. He provided support, mentoring. We have lost that touch, and I don't know why. Hopefully, I hope Brown Kessler will come back and go back and work for IG or somebody else. But I'm sure he's busy playing golf like you and Glenn. But my point is that we've got to have those mentoring programs. We have to have a commitment to inclusion. And if we have that commitment to inclusion, Anthony and Glenn, and it makes sense financially, and let me tell you why it's going to make sense. Think about COVID. COVID is awful. What do you think would happen if the $90 billion travel market decide we're not going to take vacations, we're not going to have conferences for 1 year? We'll sink this whole industry.
That's right.
That should not happen. I mean, people ought to want to have their young kids go to school, get a good job, do better than the parent. Obviously, I want my kids to do much better than I do, and I did in this industry. And so at the end of the day, I think your point, Anthony, mentoring, putting these protege programs that we're working on, I think those are going to be the critical element. And the leaders in the brands, in the management companies, we have a saying. Somebody wants to manage one of our hotels, we have to take a look to see how the executive team looks. Now, isn't it silly if you go to a Black-owned hotel and the same issue that Glenn talked about in our report is representative at that hotel? There's in Cincinnati, we had a similar case where the Chambers of Commerce was asking us, hey guys, you have Black-owned hotels here, but yet you have very few positions with Black executives. Well, we've got to go back to our management companies and say, hey, listen, guys, if you want to manage our hotel, you've got to be able to do the right thing. If you're not going to do the right thing, then you can't manage the hotel.
Right. I think you're absolutely right. How about a quick word on what you call attribution bias and the fallacy of lowering standards for Black employees? I found that to be really fascinating as well. It's one of those cultural biases that people may not even realize that they have. And it's something that we need to pay more close attention to. So, Andy, how do you see that? And how can we make sure that we're not accidentally being biased when we have no intention to be?
Yeah, that's a sea change, and that comes through socialization. I mean, think about it. Most of us says, I've got a friend, i.e. Black, i.e. Jewish, i.e. Chinese, because I know that friend. And people have this bias that if I have a Black employee, that employee is not quite capable of measuring up to the sort of standards that you need, which is completely true. And sometimes that is simply a result of just not being aware. Part of a lot of the education programs that you see on college campuses and bringing these young people together are creating a lifetime of relationships so that the young guy that's graduating in 2021 is going to have a different mindset than his parents had back at that time. The fact is that a lot of old white men that control the industry have got to make a decision that, hey, I want to be a bit more flexible. Those bias that I may have is not done purposely, but we all have to recognize that, you know, we have biases. I, as an African-American, have bias. I, as a Caribbean guy, may have bias to somebody else from the Caribbean or somebody else elsewhere. I've got to be strong enough to understand that and capable enough to be able to do something about it.
Right, because we're all programmed by our culture, our environment, people that are around us, and it becomes so inculcated into us, we may not even understand that there's a problem. So it's really important to look inward.
Anthony, I want to give you a story. We have a great relationship with the Asian American hotel owners. We patent our programs. We work together. I've used a lot of their ideas. We have a different strategy. African Americans, by and large, aren't operators. We're investors. Asian Americans are both investors and operators. But I remember people asking me, and I get this even currently, how come we developed such a great relationship with the Asian American hotel owners? Number one, we had some commonality. We're both minorities, even though they own 42% of all the hotels in the United States today. But when we hosted them in Fort Lauderdale, I believe back in 2007, for most of the folks in Fort Lauderdale, they had never seen 4,000 Indians come into a convention center And I remember talking to the convention center and saying they only want Indian food and they want to bring their own chefs in.
Right.
So for us, it took me a clear path of trying to understand who they were, where the relationships are. And today, most of my friends that are within the Asian American Hotel Association have developed the same passion for their counterpart in the African American Hotel Association through that socialization, through that real commitment to try and make a difference and understand each other's culture. I mean, growing up in the Bahamas, I had no idea that I would be in the US talking to a bunch of guys that grew up in India.
Right.
The reality is that we all wanted to do well. And I think when you make that decision that we're in the same boat, i.e. the hospitality industry, we all want to do well, then we're going to find ways to work together. And it may take some effort, but today we have never had a NABHOOD conference from the beginning of time where we did not have Asian American hoteliers present. And in fact, a lot of our investors have Asian American hotel investors involved in our capital stack.
Yep. Makes sense. All right, Andy, before we wrap up with you, we have an amazing question here that I want to put up.
Amazing question.
Yes. Jakima Hiller, I apologize if I'm not pronouncing your name right. How do we get in front of hotel executives when no one responds to your resume? Create video resumes, phone calls, emails, social media network messages. How do you get them before them to show you're qualified, passionate, and capable? And maybe there's also a little name bias in there when it comes to resumes with people that don't have white sounding names on their resume. Is that a possibility? So what do you think?
She's exactly right. And that's one of the issues that we've dealt with a commitment to revamp HR. So we put together an HR committee among the brands, among the management companies, among our own hotels to begin to address it. The other issue too is, and we saw this in Miami, where people traditionally would say, I have an HR agency that hires everybody. Well, if you look at the history of what they've been hiring and diversity, particularly African American, have been lacking, then you make a decision to change. In Miami, when we wanted an African American to run the multicultural division at the Greater Miami Convention and Visitors Bureau, I sat on a committee and we insisted and made it a motion that the fact is we asked the CVB and thank God to the leadership of Bill Talbot, we said, then let's go out and find an African American HR agency that can work with your current agency and find a right candidate. Because what you find is the biases change completely. And so I have an agency that specializes in or owned by an African American that understands the community, you're going to find the results completely different.
Fascinating.
And great agencies out there, but you're right. The biases are ingrained in your system and you don't really think about it, but there's some names that you hear, you say, I don't want them on my team. And how do I pronounce the name? And what is my guest going to say? America has changed. And so it's important for us that that young lady that had that question feel comfortable that she's going to get a fair shake. And by virtue of her name, she's going to get people to respond. Anthony, I see you jumping at the bit.
And she's a big, she's a passionate hotelier. I know her. I follow her for a long time. And she is a very passionate person, very qualified. And what I'll say to her and I'll say to everyone is, yes, everything we're saying is 100% true. And I've seen it for myself. However, the one thing that whether you're white or black, you got to show up. You got to get to the hotel. You got to show them your resume. You got to ask to speak to the human resource director. You got to ask to speak to the general manager. I don't care what side. I don't care if you're black or white, because there are so many resumes coming through email that I just can't get to it all. I mean, when people, even kids, or today a kid wants to talk to me and they're sending me emails. And I said, stop sending me emails. Send me a text message, because in the morning I look at my schedule and I'll get you in. But if you send me an email, I don't look at my emails till tomorrow or tonight. And then the time I look at it, my schedule's full. So just show up by showing me a text message. I cannot say it enough. if you want a job, you got to get out of your house and you got to show up. Wear your mask, go show up.
Anthony, I agree with you. And even when I go to conferences, sometimes I have to ambush guys that I need to talk with to say, hey, here I am. Let's chat. So I agree with you, Anthony, because there's so many people that are sending resumes, so many folks that needs a job.
The system doesn't work, Andy. The system of the way resumes are handled today does not work. And I'm waiting for someone to change that because it just doesn't work. I mean, the people that push the hardest, yell the loudest, and have those, we don't all have those brands on our top of our resume that we graduated MBA from Harvard, or we don't have all the gold standards on our resume. Those gold standards come out and go into a pile of people. I want to talk to those people. You got to show up.
No, I agree, and you said it best. You show up. You got to find a way to get there. You cannot just send a resume and wait for a response. It does not work.
It doesn't work at all. And
right.
And then you start blaming everyone.
That goes to the larger issue in life. You control your actions. You need to make things happen. If you sit back in anything, it's not just going to come to you. You have to get out there and make it happen, whether it comes to getting a job or getting new business or whatever it might be. Anthony, if we had sat in our butts and did nothing when all this started, we wouldn't be sitting here doing this show right now. That's getting all these tens of thousands of downloads.
I'm not talking to you. I'm just talking to Andy. I'm mad at you.
No, hey, Glenn, Anthony would be on the beach surfing, having a good time, drinking rum bamboozle.
Hey, listen, Andy, there are 3 TV shows of me surfing, and I guarantee you one of the things I will not be doing is surfing. It's too much work for not enough speed. You get in a car and you go 120 miles an hour around the racetrack. Now there's little effort and a lot of speed. Yeah, surfing's not enough speed for me. Before when I interrupted you, you got mad at me, so I'm still mad at you.
Wait, you're mad at me?
Well, Andy,
if it makes you feel any better, the only surfing I ever did was I actually did body surfing at a Pearl Jam concert in 1991. So I got that surfing credit.
Body surfing at a Pearl Jam.
Andy, it's always a pleasure to have you. You always have amazing insights, and I always learn something, and you're always a positive force.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the opportunity. Looking forward. Enjoy. Stay off the beach, Anthony. The beaches are closed in the Bahamas. Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Andy. We're gonna have you back again real soon. We promise as our continued commitment to getting more visibility for what you're up to, and we want to help. So thank you, Andy. Really appreciate it.
Enjoy, guys. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
The Bahamas are not closed. So I want everybody to know that you can go to the Bahamas. Mm-hmm. You can't take a commercial flight. So you can charter, you can take a boat. So you can get to the Bahamas. So it's a little bit more difficult than it was pre-COVID, but It makes sense that it would be a little bit more difficult because I don't think they want an influx of Americans right now who are not taking this seriously, especially if you're coming from Florida. So I think they're doing it right. So just want to make that clear. Bahamas are open. Commercial flights not open. You have to charter a plane or a boat.
Right. All right. So let's put Chris Green, CEO of Chesapeake Hospitality, into the gauntlet. Oh, yeah, he's here. And he happens to be at his office for the first time we've seen him on the show.
Chris, you get an office?
I do. Hey, guys, how are you?
Hey.
I like your mask goes with your clothes. I like
that it's Chesapeake branded, too.
I have a matching mask for every outfit. I'm trying to follow Anthony's style, so... Fascinating conversation today, guys. Great job. Andy's just a great guy and smart and really, really knows the issues.
So what did you take away from that conversation? How did this inform you and get you thinking a little bit differently than what you might have been thinking an hour ago?
So we have been thinking about this a lot for a long time. And, Andy's points are all, I think, very accurate. The challenge, if we're talking about accessibility for African Americans to senior roles, I think it's part of the fact that we have unconsciously for a long time as an industry helped other people up the funnel faster, and to get to the mid-level director level, that's happened and that's happening now. But to get to the executive suite, we just haven't done a great job. And the problem with that is, as I see it, and as I talked to my VP of HR about it, is unconsciously or not, we have had some sort of bias to training in the field and I'm not speaking for Chesapeake. I've been with other organizations, but where we only have one Black candidate for 8 white candidates, and so then just the number equation makes it difficult for people to funnel to the top, and we have to change that. I mean, we have to. We're talking about it actively in our organization, and it's critical.
Are there any mid-level managers in your company that are ready to get to the next level, or are there any high-level executives in your industry that are African American?
We don't, and we worked really hard on moving women forward over the past several years, and we just didn't have a good stable. But I have 6 African Americans at the director level that are all A players, and so they are the future of our company. I am proud to say that we've worked hard on our diversity and inclusion, and we have my whole next level of executives is either coming up as either African American or Hispanic or women. I mean, I'm going to be surrounded by a ton of women here in the future, and we're working hard on what you guys just talked about. I loved Andy's point, the mentorship. I had a great mentor, but we need to all too often we mentor people that are like us, that we're comfortable with, and we've got to stretch our boundaries, right? And I want to be a shining example. We're not one of the big management companies. We're just Chesapeake, but we're going to do the right thing always. And this is something we can do. We can do everything else. We can do this too.
Right. And I think, the number of candidates have to change, because you're right. If I have 1 African-American candidate and there's 8 white candidates, the best person is going to get the job.
Right.
So you need to, and it may be the African-American, it may not be. And you've got to be able to have enough candidates to choose from. And so the problem is we don't have enough. And what's interesting to me in our industry is the higher you go, the wider you go, the lower you go, the blacker you go. And that's just so horrific. People say to me all the time, 50% of the people in our community, in our industry, are minorities, but almost 100% in the C-suite are white.
Yeah, there was a comment. I've been watching the whole time. There was a comment from a young lady that said she can't get anybody to interview her. Mm-hmm. She's a room attendant, and she can't get anybody to interview her for a supervisor role. And to me, that's just bad leadership. I mean, I don't know where she works or what hotel.
There's a lot of bad leadership.
Don't post it. But if somebody is knocking on my door to get a promotion, I'm going to take interest in that person. I'm going to talk to them as the general manager, and I'm going to tell them what they need to do to get to the next level. If they're not ready yet, that's just bad leadership. If she's been there, I think it said 11 years, and that's just bad leadership. So, and that we have that too. We have that problem too in our industry.
Yeah, that bad leadership is a really big problem in our industry. I mean, I've seen more bad leadership than I've seen good leadership, and it's just no easy way to say that. And the reason I've got this reputation as a renegade is because I've been managed by bad leaders, and I just don't like it, and so I don't tolerate it. But it's so bad. I mean, it's horrific. It's the majority. I would say the majority of hotels that I have seen and my friends have worked in has been bad leadership. And it's unfortunate. And maybe that's just a New York thing. And when I say bad leadership, I mean, they come to work, they do their job, they try their best, but they don't engage in their employees in a real way. They don't let an employee kind of bump out their chest a little bit and say, hey, I'm upset about this. That's what I'm talking about, bad leadership. I'm not saying coming in, you're yelling, screaming at people. The bad leadership is when you're not paying. How do you have a person that's in 11 years working for you and wants to be a supervisor and isn't a supervisor? So one, you haven't put her on a course to tell her, hey, you're not going to be a supervisor.
Right.
Your skill level is just not there. And let me show you why. If you want to take these courses and come back at us, yes, I would love to, because you've been with us 11 years and we love you and we want you to be here, but you don't have the skill level and we're going to give it to you. And if we give it to you and you still aren't able to do it, you're able to work here and we love you, but I would try to get a supervisor position somewhere else because it's not going to work here. You owe it to someone to be honest with them, good or bad. And that's when I talk about bad leadership.
If you guys will forgive me a minute, I'll share a story. It was a seminal moment in my career, and I remember it like it was yesterday, and it changed my outlook on a lot of things. I was a young assistant general manager of a full-service Hilton down south, and I was busy, right? I'm running back and forth to whatever was going on in the departments, and I was walking through the lobby, and one of our room attendants, who's a longtime employee still at that hotel, I believe, said, "Good morning, Chris. How are you?" And I said, "Fine. How are you?" And I kept walking. And as I walked away, she said to me, "Do you really care?" And if you get to know me, I mean, my heart is where I lead from, and it was like a stake through my heart.
Right.
And that day I changed. And it just changed my career. This is 25 years ago. It's changed how I think, that we need to be attentive to everyone's situation, listen to people in their situation, and pay attention to what people want to do with their career, their challenges, the roadblocks, and move people forward. We have to. Otherwise, we can all be very busy. And then we do ease ourselves into unconscious bias, which is a real thing. And if you don't do that, if you don't step away from the unconscious bias and look at everybody and listen to everybody, you're at risk of missing some real gems.
Yeah, and I agree with you 100%. But then also there's just bad leadership, whether you're white or black. So where you're not getting people to pay attention to you because they're just bad leaders. And so there's two things at play: systemic racism, but also I think bad leadership. And I've seen it over and over again. When I come into a hotel and all of a sudden people have been there for 20 years, white or black, and all of a sudden they're like, "Hey, Anthony, thank you for giving me an opportunity." I was like, "Why didn't you give me an opportunity?" It's because I'm not really aggressive and no one's really kind of mentored me. So thank you very much for letting me step out of my shadow and really kind of. So there's two things at play here. Yes, there's systemic racism, but there's also people that they don't mean to be racist. They're not racist. They may be black themselves, and they're bad leaders, and they're just not helping individuals, white or black. So I think there's two things at play here.
Yeah, listen, everybody, I'm looking into the camera here. I'm trying to do one of those things where you look in the camera. all of you out there in the world, in the hospitality world, that are at the director level, the department manager level, the assistant general manager level, that level. And maybe you are suffering from bad leadership right now. I had a great mentor, a great man, legend in the industry that I work for. And he told me, because some things, I was a pretty strong-headed guy, and I would say certain things. And he said, "Chris, I want you to do something for me. I want you to get a file folder for your desk. And if you don't have a desk, put it in your phone nowadays, right? I want you to make a list that says, a file that says, when I'm the boss." And because you're always learning, good leadership or bad leadership, and you need to keep that file. I actually have that file in my desk here in the office of things that I would do when I became, that I liked my mentor did, and I did things that I would never do. And you've got to be deciding who you are as a leader, because you learn a lot by the things you would never do to your people when you get a leadership position. And then when you go interview, you talk about how you're going to lead in the way that you want to lead to see success, and how you were impacted by the way you were led. And that matters, that your people you're talking to, that you understand leadership and you understand how to bring people forward. It was a great lesson.
And learning to advocate for yourself. That's a really big problem in our industry. We don't know how to advocate for ourselves. And listen, some people will never be able to, no matter how much you train them. They're just not built that way, and that's okay. So that's why you need mentors and you need people in leadership positions to, the squeaky wheel gets the oil is a famous phrase for a reason, because it's true. And we need leaders that see people that are suffering. And just so many times we just don't have them.
Yeah. Well, hey, listen, I'm glad to be back in Chesapeake World Headquarters.
Are you going every day?
I'm here this week. We're taking over a couple of hotels up in the Northeast this week, and I want to go see my team, socially distance-wise, and we're going to go see the takeover team. So it's an exciting day for Chesapeake and moving our business forward during this. So.
It's funny that every single person that goes to a business meeting or goes somewhere or a party goes, social distance, but we're going. Like, everybody's got to throw that preliminary statement in. Social distance.
Well, I just want everybody to know the reason I want everybody to know is because last week I said, we can do this. I got my mask. I got my thermometer. Let's see. 97.7. So
all right, 103, you couldn't be on the show because we're not close. We're too close.
But I am excited to be back. And you know what, Anthony, to the points we've talked about since the beginning of this show together, when I started coming, last week was a hard week for me. I was kind of in dumps. I was reading all the data. I was getting down. I was getting like, oh my gosh, business travel's down. I have a lot of business hotels. Groups and meetings is going to be down for a while. But dadgummit, I'm a positive guy, and I just can't sit in that space. So I spent the weekend thinking about it and got on a plane this morning. Had a good day yesterday. Had a great meeting with our VP of HR today. I'm back at it. We're going to knock this thing out. I don't care. We're going to knock it out. I don't
Yeah,
care.
we need stamina, and we're all getting that off each other. I literally said to myself, I was sitting on the beach this morning, for some reason I hurt my knee working out yesterday, so I was trying to stretch it out on the sand and work it out and use the hot sand to try to heal myself. But anyway, as I'm sitting there, I'm like, what would I have done without this show for 4 months? Like, what would I have done? It's like, because I'm doing a lot. Like at 2:00 we have something. I'm always busy, but it's not 16 hours busy like we're all used to being 7 days a week busy. It's like, I'm busy, but we eat busy for breakfast. It's like 8 hours a day is not busy.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen a lot of posts for people that are out of it work right now in hospitality, and there's a lot of energy around. We don't want to lose you, but I understand people are having to look at other industries, and I've seen a bunch of recruiter posts that say hospitality people, don't overlook them if you're in another business, because they are hard workers. They are like super multitaskers, and that's the truth. I mean, we know how to do some stuff that's insane, right? We got guests checking in, we got a kitchen problem, we got the pools, whatever, we got a fire alarm going off. I mean, that's just a normal day in hospitality. So sitting at a computer, I love talking to you guys, but this is not my thing. My wife always says that song from the 80s.
Yeah.
Glenn knows it. I'm only happy when it rains. That's my theme song. Because when everything's not busy and crazy, I'm a little out of sorts. So
I always say that about the military too. Hire the military. They know how to take orders and they know how to give orders. So no, in the hospitality industry, I hate to say it. Listen, at the end of the day, we're not coming back to 100% employment, no matter how great the economy gets, no matter how great the hotel. Things are starting to shift. We're doing things a little bit different. So you're not going to get to 100% employees. So those people that want to get out of the industry and say, you know what? It's different than a young kid saying, should I stay in? Should I make a point? Yeah, I think you should. But it's that guy that's been doing it, or girl who's been doing it 15, 20 years. Like, you know what? Maybe now is the shift. Maybe now is the shift. Go ahead and shift, because you know what? You may be shifted out even when the economy is good, because we don't know what's going to happen. When you have major brands like Hilton and Marriott laying people off and furloughing people, and then, basically cutting ties with people, across the board, not every job's coming back. So now's a great time. But yes, hospitality people, we can do a lot of things with a smile on our face.
Yeah, absolutely.
We sure can. So where are you going to be? I know you said something about going to Baltimore this week. Where else are you going to be, Chris?
I'm going over to the Eastern Shore, and then I'm going up into Pennsylvania
Nice.
So I'm going tomorrow over to the Eastern Shore of Maryland, and then I'm going to go over up into Pennsylvania to a couple of hotels that we're adding to the company. So I'm excited. You guys know my commitment of keeping our team and working through that, and we've been able to do that to this point and working hard to do that. So we need to add, it's like a RevPAR. I mean, if you're a hotelier out there, we need to add some RevPAR to the company. I need more hotels, because all hotels are going to do a little less business for a while. So I need more hotels in the company. So that's our plan. And with our team in place, we've been able to pay extra special attention to our current clients and our new clients. So I'm excited about it. Adding new hotels is always great. I think we're bringing somebody into the family when we do that. And we have long relationships, which help us to really get to know our people in the field and keeps our corporate team busy. Our VP of HR and our VP of Ops and our VP of Revenue Management are up there, and a couple other accounting controller. We have a team up there, and everybody's so excited to be working and bringing hotels into the family. So yeah, it's exciting times.
That's great. And one good piece of advice, Kevin Sanders, CFO, retired last week and offered this advice: regardless of the business climate, we can all control our attitude, preparation, and effort every day. I think that's a beautiful way of putting it. It's all about what we bring to it, not the circumstances that we find ourselves within.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, so that was great. Having Andy on, I think, is a real. I mean, the weird part is about, and I don't know what we're doing how we're doing on time, but the weird part is that we have some major issues that we need to tackle, and we're in the middle of COVID. But if you think about it, we've got a little bit of space. I mean, we are going to be thinking about what hotel staffing looks like going forward, right? What the mix is going to be like, and what positions are going to be able to get back at a certain time. And if we're all conscious of what we've been talking about as far as diversity and inclusion, we can make a difference in this time. We really can. I mean, this is actually a little bit of a reset on staffing. So we need to work on it. We need to be thoughtful.
Yep. Makes a whole lot of sense. Chris, any final thoughts today before we let you go back to being a CEO of a big company?
I'm super excited. I love being with you guys. I appreciate you guys for what you do and bringing all these different topics to the forefront. And I appreciate having the voice here. I'm excited to be traveling. I will say today was good. It was a medium load travel day. I was on an airline that does have open middles. I really like that right now. So any other airlines that are listening that aren't doing it, you should change that now, because I won't go on those airlines until I have open middles. And I'm a professional traveler. So it made me feel good. Everybody at the airports did good, both BWI and Jacksonville. And I feel good. So again, I said last week, my hashtag was "We can do this." Put your mask on. We can do this. Our hotels are ready. All of my peers' hotels are ready. Get out there and travel with us. Our people need you out there traveling.
100%.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Let's talk this week, Chris. You owe me a call. Let's talk.
I know. I got time this week.
All right.
All right, cool. We'll see you on Thursday when you join us.
Okay, guys.
Again.
Thank
you so much. All right.
Thank you.
Woo. Another
so
great
much.
show. I know, I do too, and that's been one of the great things about doing this show is I had a great relationship with Chris ahead of this, but it's just everything's become more meaningful and more deeper over the last 4 months.
Okay,
And that's a great relationship.
Can we vote on whether people like your background or not?
I got one comment saying that they like today's better than yesterday. But yeah, put in your comment if you do like the background. If you don't like the background, then if you don't like the background, what would you suggest for the background?
Well, I suggest we either go back to just normal office look, or I like your background. So I don't know if people don't like it or like it. I happen to like it. Yesterday's, I think, was a little too busy. That's why we're putting our brand in the middle now instead of behind you, because it was too big when it was a 3-shot. So I like it, but I'd like to see with our
Yep. You know what look? You know what look I like most of all, though. I like this one much more when I get a single shot.
Yeah, I agree with you. It looks better. So what do you got going on tomorrow? You got anything going on tomorrow?
Yes. But you have something going on today at 2 p.m. So let's talk about the webinar that you're doing at 2 p.m. today. Ask the experts.
Ask the expert. Me and my partner, Jeremy Pinkerton, we're talking about the 7 things you need to understand and know going forward. This thing is changing by the second. And the one thing I will say that you need to know, I'll add an 8th thing right now, is get comfortable with uncertainty. Be certain in uncertainty that everything is changing and you have to be able to pivot. And not only that, you have to be able to read the tea leaves. Mm-hmm. You have to be able to read tea leaves. And if you're not able to read tea leaves, you're going to be zig. You can zig. You can make a left when you're supposed to make a right a couple times and not get caught. But there's too many people making too many lefts when they should be making rights because they're not reading between the lines. They're reading the headlines. They're not reading between what's really, really happening. Right.
Yep.
So we talk about the 7 things you need to know. So 2:00 today, hospitalitysuccess.com. Go and register. And tomorrow, what do you have?
Yeah, we have something called a hotel reboot. Tomorrow is going to be really super interesting because we're going to be talking about reinvestment and refinance, all about the real estate side of the business. So real actionable insights from the vice president who runs hospitality for CBRE, Vinay Patel. He's the vice chairman of AHOA and property owner. We've got Stonehill, which provides funding. So we're really going to be getting involved in understanding everything that you need to know to understand what the investment situation is like. So check that out at hotelreboot.com. That's hotelreboot.com. And of course, subscribe to our newsletter. Text the word hotel to 66866. Easy enough, the word hotel to 66866. But Anthony, it seems like the votes are coming in. And just like the country, we seem to be split on whether or not people like the background or don't like the background. Somebody says, I like it. More, that looks pretty good, more subdued, but somebody else thinks it looks like a restroom. And Mark says he prefers a home background. It's more personal, humble, and shows your true self. So who knows what to do? I think the best one here, though, and I know you'll like this one, is put Anthony's head as your background. I like that one. All right,
so my friend, my brother, let's go. Who's on the show tomorrow?
Tomorrow, we've got the chief marketing officer with Citizen M. So we're going to get a good look to see what's happening overseas. A lot going on in Europe. So we're going to get the scoop on that part of the world tomorrow.
Great. And see what Andy says. He wants that young lady's contact.
Yeah. So, Giacomo, if you could please send Anthony or myself an email or social media message or something like that.
Send it directly to Andy. Andy wants her information. So give her Andy's email.
Yep. I don't want to give out Andy's email live on air without his permission to do that.
DM her on LinkedIn.
But send it to me Send it to me on LinkedIn, anywhere or whatever. All right. We can give out his email. horizons@gate.net. horizons@gate.net. That's horizons@gate.net. All right, everybody. Now you got Andy's email address. Be responsible with Andy's email address, okay?
And then give Chris's home address on the air too.
Yeah. Let me find Chris's home address. Chris, you're getting doxxed, brother.
So okay. So we'll see you tomorrow. Take us out.
Wait, hold on 1 second. Before we do that. All right. You know what, Chris? I've forgotten what your email is off the top of my head. It is cgreen@chesapeakehospitality.com. cgreen@chesapeakehospitality.com. I'm so used to just hitting the response and stuff like that. I forgot. All right.
If you work with hospitality, if you work with Chesapeake Hospitality as an owner, you know what you see all day long?
Yes.
Green. See green. Get it?
And one other thing, Anthony, you don't even know about this one, but I discussed it with Andy before the show. They've got their annual conference coming up. They're going virtual. So we are going to partner with them on their summit on September 16th. And this show will help serve as a platform for all the good folks over at NABHOOD for a great discussion that we're going to set up. All right.
Super. But, I just wish they wouldn't go virtual. I wish they would charter a plane to the Bahamas for us.
Oh, Andy's laughing behind stage. All right, everybody. In spirit of today, remember, you are vibrating with love and light. You are pulsating with love and light. You have the power within yourself. Remember, you've only got one life, so blaze on and
be kind to yourself.